Munich is becoming a place where the West speaks with one voice. The current security model is coming to an end, and Europe must take greater responsibility for its own defense. This is no longer a debate about the future, but about urgent adaptation to a new geopolitical reality. NATO countries openly admit that the burden of deterrence must be shared differently than before.
We trust US. We trust US because we trust the NATO as organization. United States remain the leader of the NATO, no matter do we take the military equipment or we take financial burden. The United States keeps the financial burden of the NATO. And what we need to do, we have to contribute to NATO more.
And even though the U.S. administration was under diplomatic fire just a few months ago, today even Berlin admits that Europe has neglected its own security for years. This burden sharing has been long overdue. In recent years, Europeans have done too little for their own conventional defense. Now we will make up for that. Such a division stabilizes the alliance. NATO must become more European in order to remain transatlantic. The NATO Secretary General makes it clear Europe is arming itself, but in close cooperation with the U.S., and no one today believes that the Americans will abandon the old continent. Washington remains the pillar of the alliance's defense capabilities.
And we have all the plans in place, as you know, to make sure over the coming years, with the huge investments now taking place, as I said, the Germans doubling their defense spending, the new Dutch government committing to reach as fast as possible the 5%, including the 3.5% core defense spending. What is happening in Poland? Well, I could mention all the allies, Canada back, really stepping up. So we will, over the coming years, get more and more, we will more and more see a NATO more European-led, but at the same time, the U.S. absolutely anchored in the organization.
Listening to politicians in Munich, it is not difficult to notice that for the first time in years, apart from the need for action, there's talk today of agency. Impersonal defense and deterrence are materializing in the form of specific tasks for specific countries.
The old world is gone, frankly, the world I grew up in, and we live in a new era in geopolitics, and it's going to require all of us to sort of re-examine what that looks like and what our role is going to be.
A new security order is being built in the shadow of the war in Ukraine, a real test of the West's resilience. The bombing of residential areas and the killing of civilians has sobered up elites who are convinced of the unshakable peace in Europe. On the other hand, the war itself is a daily source of information for NATO intelligence.
And what I will also be doing today and tomorrow is make clear that the Russians are not winning this, as some are thinking. This so-called Russian beer is not there. It is basically a stilted speed of a garden snail, what we are seeing in Ukraine. This is how the Russians are moving inside Ukraine. Very slow, staggering losses. Tens of thousands a month, 35,000 dead in December, 30,000 dead in January. So these are the facts, and therefore we have to keep Ukraine strong, because what we see is that they make the best use of our support.
But even so, the Ukrainian military is warning Europe that war is not just a theoretical scenario for reservist exercises.
Change or die, the slogan of today's exhibition. But it's not a slogan for Ukraine. It's warning for Europe. You need to prepare yourself before war comes to you. And in this, we Ukrainians are the best partners for you, because we already live in the future of war. And we pay for this the highest price, the lives of Ukrainian peoples.
NATO is expanding its deterrence in the Arctic through the Arctic Sentry program, a response to Russia's activity and China's growing interest in this strategically important region. It is also a change in narrative regarding attacks on the United States, which for many months has been drawing attention for the threats in the Greenland region. This year's Munich conference is a significant announcement of a reset in thinking about security, mainly in Europe. NATO is returning to the language of deterrence, and the idea for which it was created in the first place. Although not long ago, there were those who predicted the end of the alliance. In turn, the world is receiving a clear signal that the time for strategic illusions is coming to an end. It was another difficult night for Ukrainian services. As usual, the main target of the drone and missile attacks was energy infrastructure. But missiles also fell on civilian targets. Here in Odessa, a parking lot full of cars was destroyed, and firefighters had to battle the elements for several hours. In the last week alone, the Russian invader has used over 2,000 drones and nearly 120 missiles. A significant portion of these missiles were destroyed by air defenses, but unfortunately, several of them reached their targets. A combat drone attack completely destroyed this house. A family lived there, 3 children, a pregnant mother, and a father with a disability. The father and children were killed. Every day of this nearly 4-year war brings more victims and more tragic stories. The situation is also difficult on the front line. Soldiers fighting in the Donetsk region describe what it is like to fight when the enemy is not a human being, but a machine, specifically a drone, or more precisely, swarms of them. We go, we shoot, we go. The drone buzzes. We don't go. It doesn't buzz, we go. Sometimes we take a 5-minute break for a cigarette. Sometimes we sit for an hour or 2 while it flies. Sometimes it flies like hell. But despite the exhaustion and mortal danger, no one here even thinks about surrendering Donbass to the enemy. If we will give up the Donetsk region, they will settle there, and then they will have the opportunity to go further, much further. And it is precisely the transfer of Donbass to Moscow that is to be the condition for a ceasefire. Next week, the 3rd round of trilateral peace talks between delegations from Ukraine, the United States, and Russia is to take place. This time, the meeting place will be Geneva. And today, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky visited a new joint Ukrainian-German drone production plant during the Munich Security Conference. Up to 10,000 machines will roll off the assembly line annually.
That's great that we have the first production, big co-production in Europe, and this is the first one. And we've got today, I think, great result. We saw real drones. It will be very helpful for, first of all, of course, for Ukrainian soldiers, who are today absolutely heroic people. They are on the front. They give their lives.
These people are also heroes in the eyes of many Ukrainians. Teams of electricians who go out almost every night to repair the power lines. Nothing has changed. The Russians are still bombing us, attacking violently, destroying everything. First, when I was here, they hit and destroyed the roof. Then they destroyed the equipment. Everything was lost. This is simply terrorism. It depends on their work, whether there will be electricity, and consequently heat in homes and apartments, with temperatures below freezing. This often means a chance of survival. It has always been women who get pregnant and give birth to children, but in the world, according to left-wing liberal politicians, anything is possible. So it's no surprise that in yesterday's vote in the European Parliament, the left-wing majority rejected an amendment stating that only a biological woman can become pregnant. Yesterday's vote in the European Parliament discredits the Parliament and the institutions of the European Union. MEPs who deny scientific and biological facts are simply ridiculous. All this discredits the European Union and makes it as irrelevant as possible in competition with the United States. Because during Donald Trump's term in office, Americans have completely broken off left-wing ideological madness, and EU representatives will soon travel to New York for the 70th session of the UN Commission on the Status of Women, and they will go there with the position that not only biological women can become pregnant. This was decided by 233 MEPs, including Polish MEPs, but it is not known exactly who voted how, because everything was secret, not without reason anyway. When the vote was by roll call at the plenary session in December, the MEPs showed greater prudence and decency, and the amendment stating that only a biological woman can give birth to a child was adopted, albeit by a small majority. Now they have pulled a trick, saying that it was not a roll call vote. So the left liberal majority, under the dictates of the left and LGBTQ circles, voted through an amendment that compromises the European Parliament. It is truly shameful. Left-wing MEPs clearly have no shame, just like some Polish parliamentarians. Can a biological man give birth to a child? Biology is a broader concept than what internal organs we have or what we have between our legs. There are issues of hormones. There are issues of genes. Today, however, we conducted a quick poll in the Sejm, and MPs from different parties were in agreement as never before. Only women can get pregnant. It's a matter of biology, of science. I do not support the idea of voting on something that has already been established by biology and human nature several thousand years ago. I am convinced that if we asked every MEP, they would say that only women can get pregnant. So it turns out that there is biology, there is science, and there is leftist ideology. This testifies to the mental imbalance of these people, a kind of aberration, or on the other hand, some kind of idiotic ideological zeal. It is an attempt to destroy the family and human identity. That is precisely the real goal of these people. Ideology also rules there. Ideology simply blinds people's minds to such an extent that they cannot see the simplest things that are in nature. And on the contrary, in many cases, they want to punish those who would like to describe reality as it is, describe what a woman is, what a man is, what their biological and social functions are. They are punished, while at the European Parliament level, absurd things are simply passed into law. That is why the result of the vote in the European Parliament on such a fundamental issue is ridiculous, but above all, dangerous, because it strikes at the most important values on which the family is built. Despite a clear ban issued by the International Olympic Committee, Władysław Hraskewicz got his way and wore his memorial helmet in honor of the athletes and coaches who died in the war with Russia. International Olympic Committee President Kirsty Coventry faced the first serious challenge of her tenure.
I don't think it's ever really been a question around his messaging. It was where the message was happening. And, the emotions coming out, he's an athlete. I wanted to see him compete, right? And sadly, we weren't able to get that to happen. And the rules are the rules, and I believe in the rules. And I believe that the rules allow for there to be the safest and fairest way right now that we have to allow for athletes to express themselves, but also to keep athletes safe.
The International Olympic Committee later announced that Hraskewicz was allowed to retain his eligibility and remain at the Games, but without the possibility of competing.
So I was unjustifiedly suspended, and I believe that these games now and this act of IOC also serves as an instrument of propaganda for Russia. And Russia also celebrates this disqualification, and I believe now, from some point of views, it could look like that Russia coming back to Olympics, and I see really happy about it, and they're pressing Ukrainians too much now, and I think I think it's a wrong side of story, wrong side of history for IOC.
The decision to exclude Ukrainian skeleton racer Heraskevich from the Olympic Games is scandalous. It is something completely incomprehensible to me and a contradiction of the Olympic idea, because this is not about ideological neutrality, but about the fact that a Ukrainian simply wanted to commemorate the victims of Russian aggression. The international organization Global Athlete, which defends athletes against heartless administrative decisions, calls the International Olympic Committee's decision scandalous and morally reprehensible.
I think athletes should be able to express their opinions. They should be able to, as long as it's peaceful, it's not political, and it celebrates people's lives. We've seen it throughout the whole games. I mean, we've seen a Canadian remember the life of one of her colleagues who's died, a skier. We've seen Ukrainian athletes put up peaceful messages. We've seen figure skaters put up peaceful messages when they've lost the lives of their loved ones. Let people express their opinions, and if it's about grieving and supporting your nation, there shouldn't be anything off guard there.
The Ukrainian skeleton racer appealed what he considered to be an unfair decision to disqualify him to the Court of Arbitration for Sport in Lausanne. After several hours of deliberation, the appeal was dismissed.
Freedom of expression is guaranteed at the Olympic Games, but not on the field of play, which is a sacred principle. The sole arbitrator for this matter heard today's arguments and is bound by the rules of the IOC Athlete Expression Guidelines. She stated that she is fully sympathetic to Mr. Geraskevich's commemoration and to his attempt to raise awareness for the grief and devastation suffered by the Ukrainian people and Ukrainian athletes because of the war. These IOC guidelines state that freedom of expression is a fundamental right of any athlete competing in the Olympic Games, but limit the right to express views during competitions on the field of play.
The father and coach of the 27-year-old athlete, Mikhailo Heraskevich, who wants to be a support for his son in these difficult times, talks about the pride he feels. My son bought 2 tickets for tomorrow's final race for his mother and his girlfriend. Now they are sitting in the hotel and crying. But I am proud because it was something incredible for our nation. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky awarded Vladislav Heraskevich the Order of Freedom for selfless service to the Ukrainian people, civic courage, and patriotism in defending the ideals of freedom and democratic values. Sport should not be deprived of memory and respect. Ukrainians are preparing for the Olympics in exceptional circumstances during a war, and this is not politics. Politics is when the Russian flag is still present at the Olympic Games. Politics is when the International Olympic Committee is afraid of the truth and causes chaos. Vladislav Heraskevich was the flag bearer for Ukraine during the opening ceremony of the Games. The helmet of memory was intended to be a demonstration and a reminder that war is still raging in his homeland, killing people. He does not regret his decision.